about Israel in particular. Even when Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, was killed by the IDF, you were out lauding him as a hero. To most people, he's the despicable head of a terrorist organization that perpetrated on October the 7th one of the worst terror attacks in modern history. What's heroic about that?
Well, I think when you look at it in a vacuum, it's a very different picture. It's kind of like if I, raped your mother and I kicked you in the nuts 3 times and then you punched me in the face and everybody just wanted to focus on you punching me in the face. I think that would be a very different conversation than when you looked at it, the whole of what happened. And the whole of what happened was Nakba. That's where it started. You have 750,000 Palestinians that got displaced. And then you've got multiple, acts of terror, in my opinion, on Israel's side that would make October 7th look like nothing. So to me, I think it was a retaliation, and I think that Hamas is a resistance organization, and I think that Israel is a terrorist.
When did Israel kill 1,200 people in a single day and wound nearly 7,000?
Well, I mean, you have, Nakba, there was, 15,000 people killed during Nakba. I mean, there was Sabra and Shatila. I mean, that was 3,500 civilians. Then you have 2014, they killed 1,500 civilians. 500 plus were kids. I mean, so any one of those days would have been much worse than October 7th, but nobody really talks about
those
that.
Didn't happen in a single
day. And October 7th is not nearly as bad as what they say.
Well, those didn't happen in single days, as you know.
Well, I mean, you have, Sabra and Shatila, that was 3,500 people, so that was basically 7 October 7ths. And October 7th, I think the numbers get inflated a lot, too, because you're not taking into account that it was only 650 civilians, and there was the Hannibal Directive that was employed, and the Hannibal Directive is when the military is basically killing civilians so that they aren't taken as hostages. And, that had to be hundreds of people, so I would argue that it was less than 500 civilians that were killed, and to me, that is much less than what, the Israelis have been doing to the Palestinians.
But you said
even the year of, the year when October 7th happened, they had killed, hundreds of Palestinians that year. It was the bloodiest year for kids. So that was, that was a reply to what had been happening.
But when you say that October 7th wasn't as bad as people have said, what do you mean by that? Because from Hamas's own boasting through their GoPro cameras, they mutilated, burned alive, raped and abused, beheaded some people, set fire to homes, they kidnapped babies, they kidnapped Holocaust survivors, grandparents. They did just about every act of depravity it is possible to do. And they didn't just do it, they gleefully posted it on social media and the internet so that we could all watch in real time the horrors that they were perpetrating. It's hard to imagine a more horrific act than what happened that day. Why would you try to downplay it?
Well, there was only 2 babies killed from what I was told, and one was in the hospital, and the other one was shot by a bullet. There was no babies in ovens. There was no, beheaded people that I saw. The rapes were disproven. So all that was Israeli propaganda. And the problem is Israel has continued to lie and lie and lie, and they've been caught lying. And they're the only ones that have actually been caught red-handed raping prisoners. And they've done it, and the people that raped the prisoners were now heroes. And they got released, and there was nothing that happened to them. So I think it's very hypocritical to focus on things that they're doing and then try and blame them, on Hamas or the Palestinians.
It's interesting because,
it's just, to me, total bullshit. It's just Israeli propaganda.
Yeah, listen, many people will listen to you and think that what you're spewing is bullshit propaganda from the other side. And the reason I say that is you say there was no raping or abuse of women, and yet the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict, Pramila Patten, reported in March this year that there was clear and convincing information that Israeli hostages in Gaza experienced sexual violence, including rape, sexualized torture, and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, and reasonable grounds to believe such abuse is ongoing. There was also reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred during the 7th of October attacks in multiple locations across Gaza periphery, including rape and gang rape in at least 3 locations. So when you say it didn't happen, what you're really saying is you think that the United Nations report into all this, which established it absolutely did happen and was horrific, is what? Is a pack of lies? And if so, why would the United Nations lie?
Look, I wasn't there, but I have, seen articles that said that it did not happen. So, if it did happen, that's terrible. And I think that's, atrocious. I don't ever believe in rape, but, during, Sabra and Shatia, there was a, girl raped in front of her father. And, that's happened on the other side numerous times. I mean, it happened in the prison. I mean, they were literally rioting because they felt like they had the right to rape these prisoners. So, to me, I think it's a bit hypocritical. You can't believe that you have the right to rape prisoners and then complain about them raping, your civilians as well. So I don't think it just can only go one way. I think it's atrocious on both sides.